My friends, today I would like to talk to you about Hazbin Hotel, specifically the character designs and some of the kind of broader design things in general, but mostly focusing on the characters. This video might be a little all over the place. I do apologize if that ends up being the case, a little bit of stream of consciousness. So, to start with, the style overall for Hazbin Hotel is, and Hell of a Boss as well, but we're not talking about that today, is very maximalist. You get a lot of bright colors, bright saturated colors, usually on a very bright saturated background as well. And you get some very extravagant character designs with some very shapy characters. You get a lot of very exaggerated proportions and a lot of typically sharp design elements in them, a lot of jaggies and pointies coming off of them. Not everybody. For example, Sarah, who is an angel, a seraphim, is very rounded to contrast against the characters in Hell that are generally very sharp and jagged in comparison. And you get sharp jaggies just like in the design, but also the silhouette as well in general. You get a lot of very cool silhouette designs in Hazbin Hotel. Silhouette work usually being one of the more underappreciated aspects of character design. And when you look at somebody like Angel, you get a very sharp, dramatic-looking silhouette, like a very, oh yeah, that's definitely Angel, right? Now you think about all of the most iconic characters, a recurring thing is that they have a very distinct silhouette. And that is the case with a lot of Hazbin Hotel characters, right? When you see like Goku's silhouette, you're like, oh, that's Goku, you know? Sonic's silhouette, you're like, oh, that's Sonic. And then you see somebody like Angel or, you know, Alistair, and you're like, oh yeah, or like even Lucifer, and you're like, oh yeah, that's all of those people. You can tell who they are just from the silhouette. So that's very cool. Now, something very interesting about Hazbin Hotel is that it's a 2D animated show, and typically with 2D animated shows, you get designs that are very simple because of a few reasons. One of them is that every extra design element that you put onto a character is exponentially increasing your workload because you have to actually draw that. You have to move that element around for every frame that the character is in. So typically you want simpler designs. Compare, say, animated series Batman to comic book Batman, where he's been simplified a lot for the sake of ease of animation. The other thing is that with 2D animation, the more visually busy a character is, can get very overwhelming, especially in an kind of action-heavy show or a very exaggerated show. Like, Hazbin's got a lot of musical numbers, there's fight scenes. Usually with character designs like that, if they're over-designed in 2D, they get very visually overwhelming when there's a lot of movement going on. You can get very overwhelmed just looking at everything that's moving around on frame. Now, Hazbin, I think, gets away with this because of the style of the show kind of makes the characters not look like they belong in the background a lot of the time, if that makes sense. They're so exaggerated and kind of snappy, shapy, that they often don't fit quite into the scene, if that makes sense. Take, for example, this frame of Alistair, where he almost doesn't look like he's there, right? Like, he almost looks like a picture that's been laid over the top of the image. Or this frame of Pentious and Charlie, where they also don't really look like they're there. They look like almost paper cutout dioramas because of the heavy outline with the kind of like drop shadow effect on them. It pulls them so far out of the background. And because they're almost wearing like stage costumes in a way where they're kind of like, they don't look like people, if that makes sense. And this is maybe not so much of a clear point, but because they're so exaggerated, I think the brain is more willing to kind of accept what they're doing, even if they're a little over-designed, especially in motion. Now, let's talk about some of the character designs. So, to illustrate this point of, like, design, I want you to think of a show like Adventure Time, right? Or Steven Universe. Those are some very simple, straightforward character designs. And the one I'm going to start with to illustrate the difference with the Hazbin characters is Valentino, just because he's one I don't usually see people talk about. So that's kind of why I picked him. So this is a very luxurious character design for a 2D animation. He's got the big hat with things coming off of it, and the things coming off of it also have patterns on them. He's got this coat with the pattern running all the way down it. He's got multiple arms. He's got glasses. He's got an accessory in his hands. He's got patterning on the ruffles. He's got even more patterning with the buttons and the little tassel thing running across his chest. He's got the jagged stripes on the waist that also go round into the back to give more patterning. And I would even count just like the ruffles themselves, because they're jaggy as well, so you kind of have to draw that. And he's got glasses. He's got a lot of elements in his design. Very cool thing about Valentino, by the way, is that his coat is actually his wings, because he's a moth. So the coat is the wings, and they can also double as a cape in some scenes as well. A very versatile fashion accessory that's just built into his body, so very convenient for him. Another recurring design element with Hazbin Hotel is that a lot of characters have very sharp, jagged knife teeth, which makes sense for some characters because someone like Valentino is a very predatory character, right? He's a piece of shit. Everybody hates Valentino. He's one of the characters you're not allowed to simp over. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules. And so it makes sense for him to have the sharp, knife-like teeth. But there are some other characters we'll talk about in a bit that it does not make so much sense for them to have sharp knife-like teeth. One of the points of criticism for Hazbin Hotel as well is that you get a lot of repetitive color schemes. You get a lot of red, white, and pink, typically on a very red-white background as well. So, not ideal, but again, I think it works because the characters look so pulled out of the background a lot of the time. And personally, I like the color red. I like very saturated colors. If I'm drawing something myself, you damn well bet it's going to be saturated and bright. Left to my own devices, I will saturate things. But I broadly like the designs in Hazbin Hotel, which is a bit of a controversial opinion as far as YouTube videos go, but I like them. I think they're cool. They are very DeviantArt original character do not steal, but I think they're cool. Look, I don't care. And you get some very fun design elements in them, which are not just there for the sake of them looking cool. So let's look at Serpentius. So Serpentius, snake, big snake. And quite a few design elements, a lot of eyes in there, the hat with multiple design elements on him, the sharp knife-like teeth. Doesn't really make sense for his character to have sharp knife-like teeth, because he's like the least threatening character in the entire series. But he does think he's evil, so I guess it works in that he's trying to project this predatory appearance, which he's not. He's a very soft boy. So the thing is, though, he's covered in eyes, which is a bit of a weird design choice. And I'd originally thought that was just there for the sake of it looking cool, which would be fine, by the way. It is the intrinsic right of all artists everywhere to do something just because it looks cool, with no deeper meaning ascribed to it whatsoever. But, as we've learned, as of the most recent series, slight spoilers for episode 2 of season 2 if you haven't seen it. Skip ahead 20 seconds or so. The reason Serpentius is in hell is because he witnessed something. He witnessed Jack the Ripper killing people and then didn't report this to anybody. He just kept it a secret. So the reason he's in hell is he witnessed something. So there's eyes all over him. And then when he gets redeemed at the end of season 1, he loses the eyes. They're no longer there because he's been cleansed of his sin, as it were, or been redeemed from it. So, even though these designs have some, like, weird things in there that just look like they're there for the sake of being cool, sometimes, they actually have thought about the character design and put some fun design elements in there that make sense for the character. Isn't that cool? So, who shall we talk about next? Let's talk about Charlie. So Charlie is noticeably simpler than a lot of the other character designs in the show. And there can be a few reasons for that. You might be tempted to say, well, she's the protagonist of the show, so they want to keep her design more simple because she'll take up the lion's share of screen time. So it makes sense for her to be simpler for ease of animation. But then if you look at the sister show, Hell of a Boss, the protagonist of that series, Blitzo, is not simple even slightly. So they're obviously not opposed to having the protagonist be intensive as far as animation work goes. By the way, slight tangent, Blitzo got the biggest glow up from his pilot design imaginable. His pilot design was fucking hideous, dude. That was so goddamn ugly. Pilot Blitzo turning to regular Blitzo is like the biggest glow up imaginable from like the pilot designs. He looks so much better. God, imagine if they went with the pilot design for the whole show. Anyway, that's not the reason Charlie looks simple. So with animation and comics, there's this concept known as masking, which is that the simpler a character is, the easier it is for the viewer to kind of project themselves onto that character and then kind of empathize with them in a way. They see more of themselves in that character, as opposed to a realistic looking portrait, which is seen as somebody else. A simple design makes you see yourself in it. This is why, say, emojis are popular and look like they do. It's very easy to project yourself onto an emoji because it's just a simple face. So Charlie, being the protagonist, we are meant to empathize with her. We're meant to want her to succeed. And most of whether or not we will like her comes down to whether or not she's written well and all that, and how the voice actor portrays them. But then the design element helps with this as well, because she is quite simple and straightforward, and she's got these very big, round, expressive eyes. You know, she looks like an emoji in a way, right? This big, happy, charming, expressive face with not much detailing anywhere else on her. She's just wearing, like, a suit. A Hotel Atelier suit, specifically. And there's a bit of a design choice in there, which might just be me kind of projecting this onto her, but that's the fun thing about character design, is that sometimes something can be there unintentionally and the audience can read into it anyway. So she's wearing a suit, which kind of projects this aura of importance, right? Especially with like the big broad shoulders on it. It kind of makes you look like you're in charge when you're dressed like that. But she also looks like a clown, right? She's got the big red cheeks, and she even gets the clown nose put on her in one of the recent episodes. Looks like a clown. So she's in charge, but also most people in hell see her as a joke, a clown, because she's doing something that they think is outright impossible, and they all mock her for it. So you get a little bit of that in the design, because she looks like she's in charge, but she also looks silly and like a joke. So I think that's fun, even if that's not necessarily intentional. That's the fun thing about character design. And so that's Charlie. And then noticeably, she looks very friendly, approachable, cutesy in her regular design. But then in her demonic design, she looks like the prototypical demon. So you get a nice little juxtaposition in the character design there. And that's something we also see with Lucifer. I'm being bothered by my cats. Can you please not? I'm trying to record video. So that's also something that we see with Lucifer. So Lucifer has one of the more kind of eccentric designs, and he's kind of just a little guy, right? And he has probably the least subtle design imaginable, because, well, the tree, the snake in the Garden of Eden, and the fruit of knowledge, which is the apple. Well, what if we just slapped a snake and an apple on his hat and then gave him a stick that also has an apple on it? Wouldn't that be fun? By the way, did you know that there is a hidden bonus third apple in Lucifer's design? If you take your normally vertical Lucifer and turn him horizontal ways, his hair is shaped like an apple also. Isn't that fun? And he also has a circus aesthetic going on with him, because Hell in Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss is conceived as being a 7-ring circus. And Lucifer is the showman. He's the showrunner for this, who has been absent until very recently, but that's why he's dressed the way he is. Tragically, with Hazbin Hotel at least, you don't get much circus imagery outside of the songs that Lucifer is involved in so far, at least. And most of the actual circus imagery is kind of only shows up in Hell of a Boss instead, which I think is a bit disappointing, as someone who is personally a fan of circus imagery. So that's a little bit disappointing for me. And now Lucifer is just a little guy, but then when he shifts into his demonic form, he looks very different. Now he very much does look more just like a kind of traditional, this is like the leader of hell kind of design, right? Especially with like the wings, he just takes up a lot of visual space when he's in a scene with his wings out, which further lends to this feeling of importance, because he's just physically taking up a lot more space. And it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense for him in his little guy form to have sharp knife teeth. But part of the reason for that, I think, is one, that it kind of gives this impression of like hidden menace, where he is otherwise not intimidating looking at all, but then you have these traditionally predator teeth, right? Which kind of gives like a little bit of a hint that like, yeah, he's a cute little guy, but you also don't really want to mess with him. Like he bodied Adam like it was nothing, right? But the other thing is that Lucifer is a foil to Aleister, who also has sharp knife-like teeth. And there's some visual parallels with Aleister, or foil aspects to Aleister, where they're both wearing the suit, but Lucifer's wearing red and white, Aleister's wearing red and black. They've both got the sharp knife-like teeth, but while Lucifer's are pristine and white, Aleister's are yellow and dirty. They both have the stick that has the symbol on it. Lucifer is very small, Aleister is very tall. They're like visually meant to be kind of foils to each other in a way, since they have the kind of rivalry thing going on. in the show itself. Now, Alistair himself, Hazbin Hotel is not a horror series, but the closest it comes is whenever Alistair is involved in something, basically. He is going for the most kind of demonic, monstrous, almost body horror-esque kind of imagery with the way he's presented, especially in his full demonic demon form. And it's an interesting design choice for Alistair to be a deer, which is traditionally seen as a very non-threatening monster, or not monster. Deers are not monsters. Non-threatening animal, right? Deers are like seen as gentle, kind souls, and then there's Alistair, who is a cannibal serial killer, right? And it's that's kind of the thing with horror, right? Is it's like this, it's an uncanny kind of thing because you don't expect the deer to be the psychopath. So playing into some of those kind of horror concepts. Alistair also traffics in kind of a lot of spooky magic imagery with all the symbols he has floating around him whenever anything's happening. And kind of this like eldritch swirls around him, the tentacles coming up out of the ground. He's got little guys around, he's got little guy minions as well. And sometimes he kind of looks like a kind of stitched together doll monster as well. Alistair has a lot of very striking visual imagery with most of like any of the scenes he's in, like the scene where he's got his mouth stitched together. Anytime he's trying to look intimidating or his eyes turn into the little radio dials, get a lot of striking imagery with Alistair. He's also, I think, where you get the most obviously like, oh, the person that designed Alistair really liked like A Nightmare Before Christmas, right? He's the one that gives me that kind of vibe the most. Also, another thing with Lucifer, they both have the tie as well. They both have a little tie, so another thing they have in common. And Alistair, everybody, the joke is, of course, that he's the Tumblr sexy man of the show. Like, he is just the Tumblr sexy man, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. I like Alistair. I think he's very cool. And I personally believe that Wendigo imagery was also an inspiration for a lot of what he's got going on as well, especially in his monstrous form. I believe some inspiration was taken from that, even though that's been kind of denied by the creator. I don't know, man. It looks a lot like it to me. So something fun that we've seen recently, because we've recently seen what Alistair's human form looked like. And some interesting things is he had glasses while he was a human, but he has a monocle now. He also has been upgraded from just a vest to a full three-piece suit. And I think that's fun because Alistair, while he was alive, was from New Orleans, and he was mixed race. So it would have been very difficult for him to get anywhere, really, in 1930s New Orleans as a mixed race person. So and to get on radio, he had to work very hard, and he was probably not accepted in high society at all as a result of his race. So I think it's very fun that he had, kind of upper class-ish things about his design while he was a human. The vest and, the glasses, the general kind of fancy air he had of him. But now that he's in hell and he's ascended to Overlord, he's taken on some more high society elements that he might have been that he would have been denied access to while he was alive, right? Monocle is a very high society, rich person kind of thing. So he's traded the glasses for a monocle, and his vest suit has been upgraded to the full three-piece suit. So I think that's very fun that, what he was not given access to while alive, he has now taken for himself, basically. I think that's very fun. So again, not, who knows, maybe not intentional, but that's the fun thing about this, is you can kind of read into the character as much or as little as you like, and I think that's very fun. So, also something very fun. We're going to pivot from Alistair to Nifty. Brief aside about Nifty, I think she got one of the biggest downgrades from her pilot design. Even though it didn't really change that much, it just got simplified a little bit, probably for the sake of animation. And I think her pilot design was just a little bit more fun with the patterning and the, like, slightly more designed hair. But, you know, Nifty's still very cute. So Nifty is very small. She is a chibi character who you generally expect to be very round and cutesy. And she is cute. But she is one of those characters that takes advantage of, like, the sharp shape language to kind of actually apply more of her character. Because Nifty's, of course, a complete psychopath. And so even though she's, like, a chibi-esque proportioned character, you get a lot of those sharp design elements in there. Her silhouette, she's got the sharp points in her hair. Her calves are like knives. She's got the sharp pointed feetsies. But then, like, in her face as well, she's got the knife teeth. And even her eyelash has got sharp points on it, and jaggies cut out of it. And even her iris itself, like her pupil, has got a sharp jaggy in it as well. So, even though she's got this, like, rounded, cutesy dress, and she's very small and cute, she still has that, like, underlying menace in the design. And of course, the spots on the dress kind of look like bloodstains as well. So, you know, that's nice. We've got some of the character reflected in the design like that, which is always good. I basically like the juxtaposition of this very cutesy character, but she's like the biggest psychopath in the show. She's crazy enough that even Valentino, like the biggest motherfucker in the show, is like, oh, damn, that's one crazy bitch right there when he meets her, right? Like, she's that crazy. Whoever is animating Nifty at the time always looks like they're having a lot of fun, because by virtue of being, like, this more chibi design, she gets to be even more exaggerated in a lot of the scenes that she's in without it being jarring, right? Like, she has some of the best expressions in the entire show, because you can just kind of go crazy with her, and it just totally makes sense that it's that way, because she's got this cutesy design. So that's very cool. I like that a lot. So next, let's talk about Velvet, who I have less to say about, but I just like that I think she's very fun as well. More one of the less intimidating members of the V's. We won't be talking about Vox today, by the way, because out of all of the V's, he's just the least interesting one. Velvet, I like because she is, like, influencer and fashionista, and I just like that her design changes a lot over the course of the show. She has, like, the most costume changes in the series, even across both series, unless, depending on how many of Blitz's outfits you want to count. Because he definitely changes costumes more, but sometimes for, like, 10 seconds at a time, you know. Velvet has, like, the most actual kind of design changes, which is also very novel for, like, 2D animation, where you don't see that a lot, right? Like, most characters have, like, their outfit that they wear, and, like, they have, like, their hairstyle, you know. Velvet changes her outfit and her hair a lot, and that's just very cool, very nice to see. Also, you know, increasing the workload a lot whenever Velvet's involved, because that means you have to go through extra, like, design phases, as well as the extra work of animating her generally very busy designs. My favorite is when she has the lesbian haircut in the most recent episodes. I like that one a lot. Because, you know, I like that hair. You know, I like Karlach's hair. I like Vi's hair. It's very nice. So I just think it's very fun how often she changes designs. And they all look very fashionable, right? Like, even the ones that are, like, more obviously costumes, right? Like the Western outfit that she's wearing, or, like, the stylist outfit. Even though those are, like, costumes, they've got, like, a fashion spin on them still, where she's got, like, the poncho sweater combo kind of thing, and the pink hat with the heart motif in it as well. The heart motif's kind of repeated throughout the design, and then, like, the boots that are kind of much more fashion, not practical at all. So I like that she, being the fashionista influencer, she puts this fashion spin on the outfits anyway. Also, she's a doll with visible doll joints. Sometimes not very pronounced, sometimes more pronounced, because a lot of her outfits are not very revealing. So sometimes you only get, like, a hint of it, but I love doll joints. We love a character that has visible doll joints in their design. Very fun. We love that a lot. So, let's now talk about Angel. So, Angel, I think, has the most striking silhouette in the show because his proportions are fucking insane, right? Like, he's like 80% leg. He's got that fucking clamp design animation style going on right there. But I really like the interesting choice to make his head look like that. Because you've got this very tall, lanky, gangly guy, and then this very flat head with the concave part on it. Like you came up and just, like, hit him on the head really hard and, like bashed his head in, right? It gives him this very striking design where he's very tall and then flattens out right at the top. I think that's a very interesting design choice. Also, I like how androgynous he is, right? He gives big, he's not gender fluid, but he gives very gender fluid design because you don't really know just by looking at Angel what gender he is, especially with, like, the tuft of fur around the chest that makes him look like he has boobs, right? And then this, like, this sort of more traditionally, stereotypically feminine kind of figure, which a lot of the characters have, to be fair. This is one of the points of criticism. You don't get very much variety in body type. You get a lot of very thin twinks with slutty waists in Hazbin Hotel, which it doesn't bother me, but, you know, it is indeed a thing. Very fun design element. You don't get what animal Angel is by just looking at him, really, but he's a spider. So I really like the design choice to make the extra spider eyes look like freckles. I think that's such a fun design choice to make with the character, really. Now, this is the character that does not make sense, because he has sharp teeth. He has the knife teeth as well. This is one of the characters where it just doesn't really make sense for him to have those. And I guess the reason for this is that a big part of Angel's character is that he's putting up a front. Like, he's making a show and trying to pretend he's more threatening than he is. And I guess the knife teeth play into that, where he is not predatory at all, but he kind of wants to project a little bit of that imagery out there. So the knife teeth kind of help with that a little bit, I suppose. Though it doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense for him to have them, in my opinion. But big ups to the design team for making a spider that I don't hate. I'm arachnophobic. I am very arachnophobic, right? Like, this is so a little embarrassing, but so do you know the game is Tomb Raider Go or Lara Croft Go? I can't remember, but it's like the little kind of board game-fied version of Tomb Raider. And there are spider enemies in that game, and I didn't like them when I saw them. But then also doing one of the puzzles, fucked up, spider kills me, makes this horrible screeching noise, and does, like, the lunge thing. And I hated that so fucking much. Like, that triggered my arachnophobia so bad that I immediately just Alt F4'd out of the game and refunded it. I did not want to engage with that anymore. I'm extremely arachnophobic. Like, I can feel them on my skin when I see them. But Angel, I love him. He's great. He's awesome. Despite being a spider, he's such a friendly spider that it doesn't bother me. And he's great. Angel's design's great, even though he's a spider. Because, you know, I think basically just because you can't tell he's a spider until you're explicitly told that. Or until you see, like, the eyes open up in the one scene where he's trying to look a little bit more intimidating, right? Also, he's got heterophobia in his eyes. We love that. We love to see some heterophobia in the design. So, next, brief aside, I want to briefly mention that I love that there's an honest-to-God sparkle dog in Hazbin Hotel. One of the overlords during that meeting in Season 1, Zizi, I think her name was. I looked this up, but I've forgotten. She's an honest-to-God sparkle dog OC, and that's so incredible. I love it so much. Just the audacity, the nerve to put a character that garish into the show is incredible. I mean, Feathered Dinosaur, that's just fun. You know, Feathered Dinosaur is a fun design choice. But, like, oh, the audacity, right? The deviant artness of the design. The bright fucking neon pink against the green with that, like, scene hair and outfit. Oh my god, I love it. Just so shameless. Like, when you're making art, you can't be ashamed. You've got to put your heart and your soul into it, right? And nothing says heart and soul like putting a sparkle dog in the show. And, like, sure, she's there for, like, not even, like, 2 minutes of screen time. But just the fact that in a mainstream, extremely popular animation, there's an honest-to-God sparkle dog, man, that's worthy of praise on its own. Just the audacity of that. Next, let's talk about Vaggie. So, Vaggie, basically, you know, she looks fine. She looks great. You know, very striking silhouette and all that. Much more serious than everybody else. Also a very different color palette to a lot of the other characters in the show because she was an angel. So she has some more of that angel coloring in her. While also maintaining some of the hell in there as well, of course, because there is the red in there and all that. But much more... It's a kind of hybrid color scheme between the angels and the demons, which I like. But what I really like about Vaggie's design the most is that when she was an exorcist, she had very cropped, short hair and the wings, of course. And, you know, that hair looked great. I liked that a lot. I like short hair on women, generally speaking. Like Bayonetta 2's design is the best version of Bayonetta because she's got that super slick short haircut. But besides the point. So Vaggie gets cast down, loses her wings and all that, but she has grown her short hair out into this extremely long haircut that almost looks like wings in the silhouette. And I think that's such a great idea. Like, that's a fantastic way of showing that you have recovered from previous wounds and you've grown since then, right? Because lost the wings, but that's been replaced now by this hair. This new growth has replaced the old wounds. I think that's such a fun design choice, right? Like, that's inspired, honestly. I don't have much else to say about Vaggie. She just generally looks good. But that's just such a great design choice. And then, you know, when she's wearing that final battle outfit with the X over it, and then she's got the X in her eye, so it's like she was an exorcist, but she isn't anymore, so she's an ex-exorcist, so she has X's over her design, you know? It's just a subtlety on par with Lucifer's apples, but, you know, it's fun all the same, right? Like, just because something isn't subtle, like, it can be fun by being unsubtle, right? And that is fun. So, not much else to say about Vaggie. Her design just generally looks good. This is why, you know, normally we arrange the characters into the list. We aren't doing that today because I think basically every Hazbin Hotel character's design is pretty much on par with each other. I don't think there are any, like, that are massively above the others or, like, massively below. I think everybody is pretty much in the same general ballpark area. Some do excel a little bit more. Like, I think Lucifer has one of the best designs in the show. I also think Valentino has one of the best designs in the show. Hate Valentino as a character, but I think his design is very fun. Especially with the choice to have his wings be like an article of clothing as well. That's just very fun. Reminds me of Gargoyles, the animated series, when they would have their wings crossed over them like capes. That's just fun, right? It's just a fun design choice. So, let's next talk about Husker. So, Husker, this is another one of those character designs that's like, man, he took a lot of work to animate. His key art doesn't so much show it, but when he's, like, in a scene, it's like, wow, you know, those, like, marquee lights over his wings, especially when they're, like, unfurled, like, and the patterning over, like, the rest of him, that must have been a lot of work. But Husker, winged cat with the marquee lights do a lot of work on his design because he had the gambler thing. He's a bartender now, but he had the gambler thing going, and his powers are not just gambling related, which is what it seemed like. They're also performance in a way as well, because he does, like, in the most recent episode, slight visual spoilers, I suppose, his powers have been shown to be a little bit more performative. Like, he gets into the box that's like, I will now cut my assistant in half kind of box, and does more general kind of like trickery stuff. So the kind of marquee lights on him give like some more of this kind of showman vibe, and then like a little bit of the performer in there as well. It gives Las Vegas, basically, which has been a bit of a design shift in general, because the original hotel was very Art Deco in Season 1, but then in Season 2, it's much more Las Vegas Strip kind of design, right? It's still a little bit Art Deco, but it's taken on much more of an ostentatious design in Season 2. And Husker synergizes with that quite well because of his basically quite Vegas-looking design. I also like the choice to not give him a suit, because he's wearing the suspender pants, so he's not wearing anything else, but he kind of has that suit emulated a little bit because of the spots on the front of his chest, which kind of makes him look like he's wearing a little bit of a suit, because he is a tuxedo cat, right? He's a black and white tuxedo cat. So why don't we just put the tuxedo suit right on the front of him? You know, that's a fun design choice right there. We love to see it. Also, maybe not a character that super deserves to have the sharp teeth. He was an overlord, so I guess that's why he's meant to have that underlying menace to him. But his kind of thing is that he's, like, very jaded and beaten down and everything, so he's very unthreatening now. So the shark teeth make a little bit less sense for him now. He is also just a cat, though. And cats do have, like, they're carnivores, right? So it does make sense at the same time, even though, you know, maybe not so much, a little incongruent with the character, maybe, but it does make sense design-wise all the same. And I like sharp teeth. I'll put sharp teeth on anybody, dude. I love shark teeth a lot. And I think that's all that we're gonna talk about for today with Hazbin. We've missed quite a few characters, so we'll probably come back and talk about them again. But these are kind of the ones I find the most interesting and wanted to talk about the most. Even, you know, there's not necessarily a huge amount to break down with all of the characters, but everybody has at least kind of one or two interesting things about them. And look, I like the designs. You know, sure, the color palettes are very repetitive. There's not a lot of variety in the body types and all that. You know, the characters kind of blend in with the background color schemes and everything. They all are like competing to be America's Next Tumblr Sexy Man kind of vibes. But look, I like them. This is the thing with like maximalist art, is that you can kind of just do crazy things and whatever you think is fun, and it's fine. You know, like, it's not necessarily subtle, but who the fuck decided that all art needs to be subtle, right? Like, there's a lot of videos on YouTube that are like fixing Hazbin Hotel's character designs and all that, you know? But, like, look, the most insulting thing that you can do to an artist is take their work and fix it, right? All of Hazbin's designs are entirely valid ways of doing art. As I said, it is the intrinsic right of all artists to do something just because it's cool. Does it make sense, design-wise, for every character to have sharp teeth? No. But it's fun. Right? Does it make sense for every character to be like bright red or pink? No. But they are in hell, and it is fun to make a bright red character when they are a demon, right? It's just something that's fun. Does, like, Alistair's funky design stuff make sense, necessarily? Like, is there an underlying reason his mouth is stitched up, and that he looks kind of like a stitched-together doll sometimes? Not necessarily. Who knows? I can think of reasons that it would be like that, but we don't know if that is the case yet. But they could just be fun, right? Like, even if it doesn't make any sense at all, like when Alistair's going full demon mode and he's like that twisted, gnarled kind of demon form with all these stitches running down him and everything, it doesn't need to make sense. It's meant to just look spooky. Right? Like, he's meant to be, like, a horrifying, intimidating figure, right? And so, we lean into that because it's fun. The big radio dial eyes make sense for the character, and they're also just fun. We can just do things because it's fun, and that's fine. And sure, it might be a bit cringe to some people to, like, put your Sparkle Dog OC in the show, right? Like, that might be a bit cringe, but embrace your cringe. Be free. Do what's fun. Right? Do something that's fun. So, I like Hazbin's designs, and I like Hell of a Boss's designs. I think I like Hell of a Boss's designs more, but I think I just kind of prefer that show to Hazbin Hotel. I like both of them, but I think the imps are more interesting, just generally. The imps and hellhounds, and you don't see, at least so far, we don't see imps and hellhounds in Hazbin Hotel, and I think those are the most interesting demons, right? Like, you get more of, like, the look into, like, the caste system that Hell has and everything, right? Like, I think that stuff's more interesting than the plot of Hazbin Hotel, so maybe that's just why, but I think I like the Hell of a Boss designs a bit more. But I like both I like both of their designs. I like the saturated colors, okay? I like hyperpop, I like bright things, and I like whimsy and fun. So anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching very much if you did. Please do all of the engagement things that YouTube likes to see. If you would like to see more Hazbin character talk and design talk in general, like we could talk more about just like the backgrounds and everything, let me know if you want to see more, and Hell of a Boss, and let me know what you think about the designs. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Please tell me what you think. Anyway, that's all I've got for you. Thank you. Bye.